You are listening to the TV Obsessive podcast, brought to you by TVObsessive.com.
Okay, welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. We're today for episode 158. As always, I'm Cameron Crane, executive editor for TVObsessive.com. I'm joined by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm great. I'm here for Love Island talk. Is that why you're here? Ready to go?
No, that was. Are you looking for the Mina Kimes?
Yes. Oh, okay. Wrong place. Got it.
Cheating on me with Mina Kimes. I haven't watched that show at all.
Me neither. Me neither.
Actually, I think I like confuse these shows with one another. I just realized because there's also Love Is Blind, and I'm not sure if there's like another island one.
There is Love Island UK, Love Island US. Apparently now, I've been learning a little bit about this because this is the current phenomenon, and I'm just not up to speed on any of it. But apparently, it started in the UK and has now migrated over to the US.
Yeah, I remember there was like a parody ad for a mobile company or something. To me, it seemed indistinguishable from what the real thing would be like. You know what I mean? It was just like, I'm really not interested in this sort of thing. Some reality TV I can do, but in particular, the reality dating kind of thing, never,
Yeah.
never been my bag. Never been something I can get into.
Apparently, this show takes
You
it to a whole nother level, but I have not seen it.
know, nothing against people who enjoy the things, but like, I don't know, just I mean, like, are you able to believe that it's possible for someone to like find true love on a reality show? I think I just don't believe that at a deep level. That I think there's like no chance that that's what's going on. So what's going to be going on is rather than playing for the fame or whatever, and then even if it seems like it works out on the show, it's not going to later. I'm not sure if there are counterexamples in the real world. Maybe there are. Anyhow, we're going to talk about a different kind of island later on. Continuing our coverage of Widow's Bay on Apple TV. We're up to episode 8 already. It's June 3rd. First, we'll talk about some other things we've been watching and hit on some TV news and things like that. So, what else have you been watching this week, Ryan?
Yeah, just a quick check-in on the second season of Your Friends and Neighbors this Friday. So I guess late Thursday night will be the season 2 finale, episode 10. I did after not watching the first 7 weeks, I did check back in on the show and was able to binge it pretty quickly. It is an easy watch and kind of an entertaining still look and satire at very, very rich, the 1% of 1% life. And I found myself turning back in because I happened to see that while season 1 was something like 79% on Rotten Tomatoes and 63% on Metacritic, everything for season 2 was much higher, like rated much, reviewed much better. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'll check it out. I admit that James Marsden does add a really cool dynamic to this season. He is new in season 2, and so it's really just if you want to look at a very visually appealing takedown of the upper crust. It is a great way to spend 45 minutes a week. I actually do recommend season 2.
Interesting. Yeah, I still haven't checked that one out. Maybe I will. Also on Apple TV. Speaking of which, and of finales, For All Mankind season 5 ended last week. People are interested. I wrote on each episode on TVObscast.com. You can go look at that. I do think that it got better as it went along. And thinking about it with For All Mankind, I might have that sentiment about like each season.
Mm.
I remember mentioning this to you, right? As I was kind of doing it, I binged the first 4 seasons to catch up in time in order for this one. And so with this one, instead of binging it, I was watching week for week. And early on, I thought, this definitely feels a bit bumpy, but I think it got better. I don't know overall. I mean, I've seen a lot of people kind of complaining about the decline of the show, and I get it. Um, I do have. It's weird. It's almost not a criticism as we're like trying to distinguish between what is a valid sort of critique versus what you want as a fan, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
I feel like the show's gotten darker. I mean, I'll like avoid spoilers, you know what I mean? But it starts out, of course, like from the beginning. There's that Cold War intrigue element and all of that. And speaking of which, Star City premiered, taking the Russian perspective. I'm not sure how much I like that one, but I'm gonna keep going with it. It kind of seemed like the primary message to me of Star City from the first couple episodes was that the Soviet Union is bad. Were you aware of this? Were you
Yeah, I've seen a couple of sentiments
uh,
to that effect that, oh yeah, guess what? When we were in an arms race and a Cold War race with them, they were pretty terrible.
yeah, well, like were you were there bad? Okay, just like which I don't know, like it's like some weird kind of trying to make up for the fact that because hopefully I'm not spoiling anything for people. The like starting premise of For All Mankind is that the Soviet Union makes it to the moon first, and so
Yeah.
it's like the alternate reality of the space race if that had happened. And so there's a way in which that makes it way more optimistic or something like that because the overall through line is sort of because the space race continues, technological advancement in space exploration happens just in this accelerated sort of way, you know. Um, but yeah, it's got a little dark. I'll see how. I'm really curious to see how it ends. There's going to be one more season, but I
Yeah.
mean, you already have people all over the place quipping about how it's turned into a prequel for The Expanse, which is a dark show, right?
Okay.
Like very, So, again, I'm avoiding any specific spoilers or trying to, but I'm curious to see what they're doing. Um, and with the time jumps and all of that, yeah. Anyway, I enjoyed the finale for what it's worth, and I'm intrigued by the. If you aren't aware, again, if anyone thinks this is spoilery, get over it. Like the end of each season is the time jump occurs like at the end of each season, so you
Yeah.
get like this little taste of where the next season is going to be going, but just a little like teaser, and then you're left to sort of speculate. So I'm fairly intrigued by what they did to wrap up the season at least.
Well, I don't know if it's because you and I have talked about it quite a bit, and I know that you've been working on this for a while and tuning into into Star City, but I do seem to be seeing and hearing more about this show as it's ramped up to the end of this season. And I've seen, I mean, it's been interesting. I've seen quite a few positive reviews of Star City. It's interesting that you might have a mixed review of it, but I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, this first two episodes or first few episodes were amazing." I've seen that sentiment a few times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it's just me, um, and to what extent it was. I mean, first of all, when they announced Star City and said, "Oh, we're going to go back and we're going to start back in the late '60s or 1970s, maybe 1970, I forget what year it starts in, maybe 1969," um, and take it from the Soviet perspective. Part of my initial reaction was, I don't know if we need that,
Yeah,
like so I was a little bit negative on it from the beginning because I guess for me, I kind of enjoyed how with For All Mankind it was sort of opaque. You have that Cold War intrigue, but then part of what kind of makes that work almost is you don't know what the Soviets are doing.
okay.
You know, I mean, you kind of do, but in the same way that they're hiding it from the world or from the U.S., you have this experience as a viewer where you don't know these details. So, to the extent that Star City is going to fill in some of those details, okay. But I guess what I struggled with a bit, at least so far, and two episodes are out, and I'm just speaking to those two episodes. A lot of it seems to be like, oh, well, we're going to give you an inside look at just like how repressive the USSR was. You know what I
I
mean?
see. Okay. Yeah.
And so I don't know, like maybe others find that more compelling than I do. Um, I guess I am curious to see where it goes. There's a couple of characters who are in Star City who are in For All Mankind.
Hmm.
So to me, the most interesting thing is perhaps with the younger versions of people we'll come to know, like we know them For All Mankind later on,
I
and we're
see.
getting younger versions of them. That kind of hooks me a little bit. There's enough there that I am going to keep watching it. Um, it's always tough. It's almost like a prequel because
Yeah.
meaningfully, in the broad strokes, you kind of know what's going to happen, right? So
Yes.
what
Yes.
fills this in as a compelling watch?
If you know the end, the path better be really compelling to get you there.
Yeah, you got to better call Saul me or whatever. Like that's the
Yeah.
standard. I don't think it's going to hit. It's
Yeah.
not going to hit that standard. There's no way it's going to hit that standard. The Audacity also wrapped up this week, which I've talked about in here before, so I thought I'd hit on it briefly. Um, that's another one where I kind of feel like got better as it went along, or I'm more tempted to say everything came together really well by the end of the
Mm.
season. So I thought the Audacity was good throughout, and I'm going to go ahead and recommend it to everyone if you haven't seen it. Um, you can sign up for AMC Plus, or maybe it'll be available, somewhere else at some point. It has been renewed for season two, but it was one of those where it felt like early on in the season they were laying a lot of groundwork. There's a bunch of different characters, and I kept feeling early on like, okay, well, this is well done. It's really well acted. Why do the episodes feel like they are so long?
Yeah.
It was like, well, first of all, it's because they are a full hour, but also just because it was like there was a certain lack of forward momentum in a way.
Mm.
But by
Yeah.
the time you hit the last few episodes, everything starts coming together, and there is that momentum, and it ends really well. So um, I do recommend it. Let's see. Euphoria also ended. I'm behind on that. I noticed that you put something in our show sheet as a news item. I didn't even look at it. I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But I guess the news here is that this is officially the end, which I think we all
Yeah.
already kind of knew. But
And I think I did not watch any Euphoria this season. Didn't make it back. I think I finished the first two episodes of the first season. Just hadn't made it past that, so I didn't catch any of this season. I just kept over and over again hearing people talk about how disappointed and discouraged they were with this season, just for story choices, character choices. What became clear that we've got three or four of the biggest stars in the world. Sometimes it seems like they were acting against, tennis balls and they weren't in the room with one another because of schedules and things like that. So just a lot of disappointment with this season. I can't speak much to to the arc and to the character development, but just seems like it ended on a more controversial note than they wanted it to.
I don't know if they wanted to do. Sam Levinson, I think I'm souring on him in a certain way, but that's maybe neither here nor there. I fell behind. I think I told you on here. I watched the first episode of the season, and then I felt like no one was talking about it, so I got well, no rush.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then I haven't gone back to it because again, actually going all the way back, I've never been sure whether I like the show. So I do feel like, all right, I'm going to be a completionist, and I'll work on watching the rest of season three. But it's interesting because yeah, I've seen a lot of kind of negative comments along the lines of what
hmm
you're saying, and then I can think of one person, Sean T. Collins, who writes a couple places as a TV critic. I follow him on Blue Sky. We seem to have similar tastes in a lot of ways. We both like the Twin Peaks and some other stuff. Um, he's just kept posting about how great he thinks of it. Just like
yeah,
if you're down on this season, you don't get it. Like is it over the top? Yes, good, great. Is it salacious? Yes, good, great. And that kind of intrigues me. Like if I can watch it the right way, just as a kind of and appreciate the spectacle, which I think I was already trying to work on doing in the past, particularly with season
yeah,
two, which I wrote on, where it was like I found it to be a hard show to write on, and in the background of that was a question of how are you supposed to watch this?
mm,
Because a lot of the discourse in the world would be, I don't know, almost gossipy or like taking sides between the characters or whatever. And
yeah,
it's like, well, obviously, like that's not the kind of thing that I'm going to do if I'm
yeah,
writing on it for TV Obsessive. That's not really what we do. So trying to take a critical lens and trying to ask like what this show is doing.
yeah.
And what I landed on ultimately was it's all aesthetic. Just take it all, that you could take it from a moral point of view or something. Don't do that. This is all like It's like painting with morality. That was kind of what I landed on. So I wonder if that take holds up through season three. I'll have to try to catch up at some point because once it ended, all of a sudden it was like, oh, got to avoid spoilers,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that kind of sucks.
Yeah, we'll see. Had a lot of reaction to that, but now
You
officially over.
you did watch a couple episodes though. You hadn't told me that before. What did you think?
I think I
Watched
made
a
it
little
in.
bit.
I'm made it into season or episode 3 of season 1. For some reason, I got stopped there and just haven't picked it back up. It may have been when I saw this news about it officially ending. I can't recall, but anyway, I made it through a few episodes so far.
How much of a like cranky old man did you feel like watching the first couple episodes?
I felt like the crankiest, frankly. It's like,
Yeah.
what
That's the
is
experience
this?
I had too. Like,
This is not for me.
what is wrong with these kids? Yeah. So good. Speaking of space and something that won't have spoilers, apparently they're gonna make a Challenger TV series with Will Arnett and Kristen Stewart. I mean, like the casting information, cool. Um, Kristen Stewart, good. Will Arnett, good. But what do you think about this very idea of making a TV series based on the Challenger?
Yeah, so I will admit there are a couple of personal reasons why I put this in our notes. And we'll get to this. I'm maybe like you, we're sort of maybe mixed or ambiguous on what the subject of this is. But this is a show that's going to star Will Arnett as NASA official George Abbey, and then Kristen Stewart as astronaut Sally Ride. A lot of people know Sally Ride as sort of her famous as a female astronaut and her helping prop up sort of astronaut opportunities for women over the decades. I am interested in this subject. Again, there's a lot of sort of NASA content and NASA affinity here in Houston for for all things having to do with this and history and all that. A lot of great things you can see. I'm drawn to this because early in my career, I worked at a think tank here in Houston that did space work, and so I was actually a colleague of George Abbey for about 12 years, and
Hmm,
so knew
interesting.
the guy quite well and found him to be fascinating. So now Will Arnett is going to be playing him. I don't quite in my mind make that connection, but we'll see how they. I didn't know 1983 George Abbey, but I've actually had dinner once with Sally Ride and got to talk to her, and so just very curious how they portray some of the more challenging, that's a bad pun. Some of the more difficult aspects of NASA's life in the 80s and 90s on screen. Again, Will Arnett and Kristen Stewart, how they pair together, I guess remains to be seen. That seems like an interesting duo. But this is going to go through, yeah, sort of a lot of tumultuous times, and I don't know. I guess I'll just reserve judgment on the casting here until I see sort of more about the subject. But just because of the subject matter and because of what it's about, I certainly will be watching just for a personal interest.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by it. But like one follow-up question to your story there. You said you had dinner with Sally Ride. How old were you when you had dinner with Sally Ride?
Oh, like 25, 26, maybe?
Does that line up?
No,
Okay.
are you thinking of, hold on. You are thinking of,
What am I
wait,
thinking of?
do I have my female astronauts mixed up? Who's the female
Oh man,
astronaut? Who's the female
are we gonna need to
astronaut?
make an edit? This would be embarrassing, Ryan.
No. Sally Ride was not on Challenger.
Okay. Who's the one who was on Challenger?
That was it Krista? What was her name?
Um. Okay. So I'm wrong. That's good. That's better. That's better than I'm wrong than you're wrong. Because like you live in
Yeah,
Houston.
Krista McAuliffe.
You tell you told
Krista
you
McAuliffe was the
told this whole
teacher.
story about meeting Sally Ride. Okay. Um.
Yeah, Krista McAuliffe was the teacher who was selected to go up in the Challenger. It was part of that tragedy. But Sally Ride was selected by George Abbey to be, I want to say, the first female astronaut in space, and then became sort of an advocate for female astronauts over the decades.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And you had
Okay.
me doubting myself there for a second.
Apologies. Apologies. Sally Ride, by the way, is talking about For All Mankind. She's in For All Mankind.
Ah, okay. There you go. Yeah. I mean, she's a prominent figure in NASA
A
history.
version of Sally Ride.
Yeah.
Another thing that's kind of interesting about For All Mankind is it's like some of the characters who show up in the show were real historical people, but then a lot of them aren't. So it's a real mixed bag of like
Interesting.
main characters almost who weren't real people, although they were maybe loosely kind of sort of based on some people,
Yeah.
and then just nope, that was a real person. So you almost have to check. You're like, wait, is that a real person? Uh, anyway, speaking of space travel, I guess Stargate we talked about before when they announced this that Amazon was going to put out a new Stargate series, and apparently they've given this the axe. I mean, I think the headline here says it's canceled. Is something canceled when it never really even came into being? I guess whatever, it's dead. And what I've gathered from this, kind of reading between the lines, it sounds like it was too nerdy or too reliant on being well versed in all the previous Stargate stuff or something like that. So it kind of sucks, particularly for Stargate fans, I think, that this cancellation came through. But
Yeah.
how familiar are you with Stargate?
I was drawn to this sentence. I mean, not being an insider, I don't know how often this happens, but this reporter says they heard that they had completed a 20-week writers' room and were in pre-production for the show before they axed it because of creative differences between what Prime wanted to do with their sort of strategic programming and where the vision of the show was. Man, that just seems like they were pretty far down the road, and we had talked about this a couple
Yeah.
of times. So it's not like this just happened over a span of a couple of months. This has been going on for a long, long time, and sort of cut it at that, not necessarily 11th hour, but near the finish line is interesting. It must be related to, yeah, we just wanted to go deep down rabbit holes, but maybe Prime was thinking, oh, we want to make it more accessible to other audiences, and they just didn't want to go that direction.
Yeah, that's my read on it. And I'm kind of reading between the lines a little bit, but that's my takeaway. So, like, there's some possibility that a Stargate series will ultimately happen,
Yeah.
but it won't be this. It'll be totally different. It does suck that they were that far along. I mean, I hope all the writers and everything got paid at least. But it's an interesting question because I have some familiarity with Stargate. I know I haven't watched everything.
Yeah.
So there's some part of me that's intrigued by the idea of this new series. But it's true that probably there is some part of me that feels like, well, if it's going to presume that I've got thorough knowledge of everything that came before, that might be something of a barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Although if you did it right, it might inspire me to go back and revisit all that old stuff, which arguably might be like part of what you want here. Um, so I don't know, but it seems like because this is one of the first things, whatever the guy's name is who's in charge of programming is, I didn't make a note of it, whatever. It was like one of the first when he got the job, it was like one of the first things he did was make this order.
Mm-hmm.
And my take on it is that they were looking at what intellectual property they own. They're like, what do we own that we can do something with? And Stargate kind of popped out
Yeah.
as this bit of IP that they weren't doing anything with, hadn't done anything with for a while, but it's well, maybe we do a lot with this, you know. So it does make me wonder if they said, no, we don't want that. And that instead, what we're going to get is almost more like a reboot at some point down the line with entirely different creative forces behind the scenes or something. And in a way, that intrigues me less if they do end up doing that because the premise of Stargate is like, I don't think the premise of Stargate is great, honestly.
Yeah, I've not seen any Stargate before, but it does seem like this. I think Peter Friedlander was the name you're interested in for the guy who was the head of television. Yeah, just did not click with the people underneath him that were responsible for the show and genre in general, and yeah, just did not share similar vision.
Yeah. So it's a shame for the Stargate fans in particular, but that's not going to happen. I want to give you the update on that. Something that is apparently going to happen. This is kind of a weird one. I came across going through Deadline this week. Insofar as it looks like this show is done, I think, but now they're shopping it. That was my read on this. I don't know if you took it a little differently, maybe. They're what verb tense should I use? I think they have made it. So this
Hmm.
is The Birds, a limited series. starring Sarah Snook, um, based not perhaps directly on the Alfred Hitchcock film, but on the book that the Hitchcock film was based on, or maybe kind of both. And behind this, also creatively, you've got, oh, I don't even know. Apologies, Tom. I don't know how to say your name. Tom Speziali,
Yeah.
um, who's been involved in some things that we're definitely fans of, and so on. I don't know, man. Thoughts about this, friend?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm extremely mixed on this. I've been thinking a lot about Cape Fear and the show that's coming soon, very soon on Apple
Yeah,
TV. And I think we talked about how much that was a foundational movie for me. I think that was my first rated R movie that I saw, and just how much influence it has had on me. And now I'm kind of doubting whether I really want to invest a lot into Cape Fear. I'm sure that I will. And movies, Hitchcock movies, especially in our household, so these old classic horror things are so important to me and important to us that I'm almost like, no, we don't need this. However, it does say it's going back, you mentioned this, going back to the short story and sort of the original context material, and what can they do with that and add and subtract and make different. I'm sure, depending on where this ends up, that I'll end up watching it just because, I'm a fan of the material. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of consider it in that sort of Cape Fear mold of there's something that's so great and so wonderful that already exists. Do we need more of it?
yeah. No, I feel you there. Speaking of Cape Fear, Paul Johnson is writing on it for TV Obsessive. We actually put out a review today, based on the first two episodes. He wanted to do it this way, but I can tell you, I mean, I don't know if this is a huge recommendation, but I can tell you that I told Paul, okay, if yeah, write something, but if you want to go week to week on it, that would be great, but it's up to you. Let me know. He's at least into it enough. He is going to go weekly on it, so I don't know.
Yep.
Tentative recommendation there, I guess. Um, with the birds, you know what? It's weird because I realize I am something of a Hitchcock fan, or might say that about myself. I realized I have actually not seen the birds.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, um, maybe I should. I don't know. Just of the premises that are out there, I can't say that it immediately intrigues me a whole lot, I guess.
Yeah.
But I know it's a very famous classic film. For the record, like what I did, I love Vertigo and like Strangers on a Train, and I don't know. I've seen tons of Hitchcock films, Rope. There's just, but I certainly haven't seen all of them. Probably very few people have seen all of them because he made so many movies.
Yeah.
But The
Yeah.
Birds is definitely one of the more famous ones that I'm realizing I haven't seen. So perhaps I should track that down first of all. And I don't know. I am intrigued by the idea of this limited series, so presumably someone will
Yeah.
pick it up, and yeah, I
Yeah,
probably
it's
will
like
check it out.
you can't make this a 3 or 4 season show, but you do it well. Extrapolate some of the context and ideas over 4 or 6 episodes and put Sarah Snook in it. I will probably end up watching it. Just have to get that other material out of my head and kind of go back to the original text, as it were.
Yeah, that's always the danger too. Like honestly, this might come relatively soon because again, my read on this is that it's done, and now they're looking
Yeah.
for distribution. So I mean, it could be a pretty quick thing of like Netflix buys it, puts it out in a couple weeks or something. We'll see. But maybe I would enjoy it more if I watched this bird series and then went back to the film.
Yeah, there you go. There's an idea.
Actually, so, that's always a good idea, I think. All right, one last thing we should hit on. I know we're already taking our time here. We want to get to Widow's Bay, but I did think it was relatively big TV news. We'll try not to get on too much of a political tangent. But did you see this, Ryan? What happened over the past few days with Scott Pelley and 60 Minutes and him like calling out his boss, Nick Bilden, at this meeting and calling out Barry Weiss and all of that. And then he got fired
Yeah,
yesterday afternoon or evening.
I think once this merger happened and the writing's been on the wall for some of this stuff happening, we knew about sort of the new editor-in-chief, Barry Weiss. I think this new executive producer of 60 Minutes, this guy's name is Nick Bilton. Don't know a lot about the both of them, but there is, again, without getting too political, there were some thoughts they would come in and make changes, towards a certain bent or a certain slant. I think long, long time CBS News correspondent and 60 Minutes host Scott Pelley thought, well, this is too much, too fast. We don't, this is not the direction we need to go. Was not afraid to share his opinion, and his opinion, if you believe what's in this piece, is what got him fired. I mean, we're not talking necessarily
Hmm.
about Walter Cronkite or Barbara Walters here, but this is, I mean, the face of CBS News for a long, long time.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you saw the statement that he put out, but he said that he'd been pressured to like introduce falsehoods and bias into his reporting that he'd been pushing back against and resisting.
Yep.
Well, whether that's true, I mean, I guess we don't know for sure or anything, but he was also calling them out for letting other people go and then and kind of gutting the news operation or
Yeah.
and the general sentiment of this isn't what 60 Minutes is supposed to be, and we're going to stand up for the journalistic integrity of this institution of 60 Minutes. It starts getting me, riled up or whatever. But I mean, in a good way, like on Pelly's side, I guess. But I don't know. It also does feel to me like they fired him because he like talked back or something. I don't know if that's going to hold up.
Yeah.
I don't know what his contract looked like or anything, but I don't know if you saw the letter saying he was fired for cause. I don't know if that really holds up as cause.
Yeah.
Um,
I
you
guarantee
know,
you he's got a employment lawyer on his team right now looking through that. 'Cause there just doesn't seem like there's cause here.
well, they said he was creating a hostile work environment or something. I was like, I don't think that word means what you think it means. You know? Um, so story is in some ways not over,
Yeah.
and in the broader sense, part of why I wanted to talk about this from a TV angle is, well, what happens to 60 Minutes? I mean, this is a show that has been on in, if I just go off the cuff without actually looking it up, I want to say my entire life,
I think so. Yeah.
right? I mean, maybe that's not quite, I think that's right, actually. I mean, we could say it, but just as institution, going back to being a kid and watching football on Sunday and the little teaser about how next up is 60 Minutes, except on the West Coast. I don't know if you got that in Texas, but the East Coast definitely did, and all of that, and because I think there's a further question of now Scott Pelley has been fired. There are other people who've already been let go or walked away. Anderson Cooper
Hmm.
walked away, I think. What about those who are left? They're down to like three people. They're down to like three correspondents.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd have to double check their names. I think one of them's Leslie Stahl, who's of course been doing this forever. So it's like, well, do those other people quit in solidarity or something like that? It seems
Yeah.
entirely possible. And then what's next? Is like, hey, time for 60 Minutes with Joe Rogan. So who knows, man? But it's wild to see
Yeah.
that kind of journalistic institution potentially just crumble before our eyes, I guess.
Well, your intuition was correct. 60 Minutes debuted September 24th, 1968.
There you go. There you go. See, I don't know. Yeah, no, it wasn't 60 Minutes. I've watched before. There's this old interview Mike Wallace did with Ayn Rand in like the 50s, but that wasn't 60 Minutes. I think it was called like Interview with Mike Wallace or something. If you watch it, I'm pretty sure it's still on YouTube if anyone's curious about this. It's in black and white. It opens. Mike Wallace is smoking a cigarette. It's kind of great.
Got it.
But all right, you ready to talk about Widows Bay?
Yeah, we got a good one. Let's do it.
All right, so we're up to episode 8 of Your Baggage. Spoilers will be on the table here for everything in Widows Bay through the first 8 episodes. We'll put a little bit of music in here and be back with you in just about 10 seconds.
Okay, we're back to talk about Widow's Bay, episode 8, titled Your Baggage on Apple TV. This episode written by Emma Ketchum and directed by Andrew DeYoung. Tom, Wick, and Patricia believe the curse over the island is gone, so Tom buys tickets to a Boston Red Sox game and plans to surprise his son with a trip off the island. But when Tom returns home, Evan confronts him about the photo of his mother from when Evan was a child. Tom confesses that she lived for a few years after Evan's birth, but she suffered a stroke that forced Tom to put her into a mental institution on the island. She later would die of a brain aneurysm. At the Historical Society, the Boogeyman mask has been stolen, and that same night, the Boogeyman shows up at Patricia's house and begins chasing her through her neighborhood. She tries to stop at Chris's house for help, but after admitting she made up all those lies in high school about her escape, the ladies in the house force her back outside. The Boogeyman chases her to a gas station where Patricia lights him on fire, but he is still able to kill the gas station attendant and wound Sheriff Bachir before Patricia shoots him. Patricia remains convinced that the Boogeyman could come back at any time, so she personally witnesses his cremation. As a major storm approaches Widow's Bay, Wick learns what has happened that night, goes to Tom's house, and tells them that the curse is not yet over. We did get a lot of baggage unpacked this episode, certainly from Tom, and seemed like also from Patricia, who admitted to a few things. So I think that's sort of the direction we headed here, but it seems like we also went back to something that happened 25, 26 years ago at this island where someone, we don't know necessarily who, is out stalking people, particularly Patricia. So is this the
Yeah.
curse? Is this someone stole the mask? What do we think here?
Well, I was curious. I mean, well, so first of all, I knew we were going to get the boogeyman at some point,
Hmm.
right? I thought they laid that foundation to where, okay, well, but we're going to get boogeyman at some point. What surprised me a little bit was, I guess, that I do have these questions about how this occurred. And I guess I don't know how much we should get caught up on it, but we should mark the questions given what we're doing here on the podcast. Yeah, who stole the mask? Well, I presume just it was the boogeyman. So for me, it was more a question of like, well, how did the boogeyman get out? You have the scene where it's like he got out of his house or whatever. We've been previously told, maybe in an urban legend kind of way, but given this show, that means it's probably true, that they couldn't kill him and they like encased him in cement or something.
Hmm.
So yeah, what happened there? And I don't know if that's the kind of question we're going to get an answer to or not. But any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, this is it's interesting why, if you're Patricia or you're the sheriff or you're anybody else that's involved in the situation, well, they did not take off the mask to see who this was before, they cremated him, which I thought was an interesting choice and certainly purposeful that they did it that way. And so, would this be some random person who's playing a trick on somebody? I don't think you can go that far when he's like literally stalking somebody stalked before and going and doing and all these murders. So I do also believe this was the boogeyman, but we have the original boogeyman, but we have absolutely no context of how he was let out of something he was apparently buried in, unless there's some component where something about the house being opened or someone entering the house. We saw some of this where Evan almost went in. It looked like the door had been broken down and went to that house. So somehow, some way, I don't think it was had to do with necessarily the curse ending, but somehow, some way, the boogeyman has been set free from where he was.
Yeah, or I mean, if there is some connection, I think this is a possibility where maybe what we'll get next time is a sort of investigation into what did occur here.
Yes.
Maybe, maybe. Because Wick at least seems to be drawing that connection between the boogeyman and the thought that no, the curse isn't over and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised by that. The other possibility is, man, it's just kind of a one-off, and it's fun. We kind of have been talking about this boogeyman, and yeah, the fact that the boogeyman showed up here and was stalking Patricia does indicate that the supernatural stuff is still occurring. We're not past that,
Yeah.
but maybe you just kind of leave it there and we move forward. I don't know. I guess my question is whether it relates at all to what we were talking about last week in terms of whether things are going to meaningfully hang on the bloodline not being over, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what the guy said last week. I can't even remember his name now. What, Richard?
Richard
Um,
Warren. Yeah.
yeah, we thought, well, when if you take me out past the line and I die, and then the bloodline will be over and the curse will be lifted. That always seemed a little too simple, and we explored some ways last week. even about like what would that mean, because why did he make this pact with the dark god of the island or whatever in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's over, I think I asked the question last week of whether that makes things better or worse. I don't know. We know for sure. Um, but that was one question we asked was, okay, well, what if he's wrong about him being the last of his bloodline? And already last week, I was wondering if maybe the boogeyman might be connected to that. So that's one way they might go, I suppose, but we'll see.
Yeah, I've seen a lot, even more than we had just in the short time before we recorded last week, a lot of speculation about that bloodline question. This raises the question of the boogeyman coming back of, yeah, as Warren died, that somehow helped resurrect this boogeyman or activate it in some way. Wouldn't necessarily explain how he got out to your question, but there does seem to be a lot of speculation that yes, there is someone of that bloodline still that remains. I've seen people then going back and they're sort of eagle-eyeing the paintings on Tom's wall and how they connect to the other things that we've seen in the course of the series and stuff that we saw from 1702. So there's just a lot of dots to connect that sort of show us that something that they thought, well, certainly what they thought was ending is not ending. But if it does have any connection to that bloodline, we still have a ways to go before we figure out who that is and what has to happen for it to actually stop.
Right. Yeah. And I think we were talking about this last week of the question of whether the young girl fell out of the boat or jumped out of the boat or whatever back in 1702. I do, I rewatched that scene and we don't see that happening, but I think it is a reasonable inference to make, given how the show ends with that painting with the girl in the water, that
Hmm.
that's what that is a painting of. I think that's a reasonable inference to make, or at least that's a kind of guess or hypothesis. I don't know that that's been confirmed. And then, if you want to go further down the rabbit hole, yeah, it would make sense. Maybe we analyze all the paintings or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to do that. I'm not sure. This is a broader question, I guess. I'm enjoying the show a lot. We've talked about this before, but it's like I'm primarily enjoying the show as a comedy for its humor. And then secondarily, I'm enjoying it for the way it's playing with horror tropes. And then the mystery is tertiary would be the word for me, I guess. What about you?
Yeah, I do like I mean, many, many homages paid to a lot of things that have come before in this show. I put here in our notes. I mean, the kind of middle 50% of this episode is basically uh, Halloween, the movie. I mean, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. And apparently, actually, the stunt actor who played the Boogeyman actually was in one of the Halloween movies recently or something. So there's a lot of connections. That's exactly what this is. Patricia running house to house. Um, the funniest part of this episode is Patricia, pointing the shotgun 1 inch away from his head
Yes.
until he's cremated, which is like a thought that every person's ever watched a horror movie has ever had is like, why don't you stay on top of him and make sure he stays dead, and not just leave him leave him
Yeah.
alone. So I just love that bit and that sort of homage to Halloween and Jason, and lots of other sort of slasher films we've had over the years.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And definitely Halloween in particular, which it's interesting because I'm not really a Halloween guy. I mean, I know people who are way more into that
Yeah,
franchise than I am, like including like Andrew Grievous, who like wrote a book,
yeah.
interviewed a bunch of people. You
That
guys
that's
go
the
check it out.
that's
It's
the
called
seminal
Horror
that is
Haddonfield.
that is horror in our house. Like that is where it started. What you compare everything to Halloween franchise, that's our number one.
So you too, yeah. See, for me, I was always just like kind of meh, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't really do it for me. I haven't seen them all. I think I have seen the first two on that one, but it was like it kind of felt like Halloween 2 was just Halloween some more again, and it doesn't really do it for me in a way like so. But what's okay? Here's what's interesting is at least for me, I thought as a portion of this episode of Widow's Bay, it was more effective for me.
Yeah.
Also at the horror level, which I thought was interesting because it made me realize that like part of my issue with Halloween is it's just okay. I get what's scary about Michael Myers as this almost I don't know, just unstoppable force of death coming at you. And there's a way in which the fact that he just slowly walks towards you and never runs makes it scarier or something, you know? And it's like no matter what you do, it just keeps coming. And it's like
Yes.
I get what's scary about that, but it's so protracted if you're watching a 90-minute film or longer to me.
Yeah.
Whereas here, for it just to be the one instance of the boogeyman going after Patricia, um, I don't know. And then I mean, this was some of my favorite humor in the show so far because I think it does directly relate to something about that horror premise as well. You know, you can't seem to go the guy. Well, what if I douse him in gasoline and set him on fire? You know,
Well, that's another thing
and then the
I found funny was many of the things that Patricia tries are just they're very similar to ways in that sort of as you get into the later Halloween movies that they try to kill Michael Myers, right? Setting him on fire, cutting him up, shooting him, all these things that never end up working. So he tries them all in this, in this little short 20 something minutes. So it just, yeah, we've talked about some of the ways it's drawn from or borrowed from lots of different horror tropes. And I just found that one to be fascinating, maybe because we are such fans of Halloween.
yeah, well, that was really good though, and just hilarious. Like when she does set him on fire, and then the gas station attendant comes out with the fire extinguisher. Oh, you ruined it.
And the like $20 on number three, like I got to go pay for it to get you to turn it on.
Yeah, the fact that she has to prepay for the gas, it was good, real good. And then yeah, just her holding the shotgun to his head in the ambulance, and then in the crematorium, and then it comes out in ashes. It's kind of like okay. But there is a question underneath that too, as well. I guess insofar as why didn't they do that before? You know, so there's a question: did that really work? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Um, we're told that before they couldn't kill him, so they encased him in cement or whatever. And now I guess he's broken out of the cement through supernatural strength, or what, I guess I don't know. We'll
yeah.
find out more about that. Does cremating him work?
Yeah.
Presumably, it should, but I guess no guarantees here. And that could be a way in which we're not done with this, I suppose, because there might be further humor to mine there in certain ways. So
Yeah,
somehow,
yeah.
like, even though you cremated the boogeyman, still not dead. Sorry. And it is interesting to note how we don't see what's behind the mask when it is more established here. I mean, like, I don't know. I guess, I mean, it's pretty well established in Halloween that Michael Myers is wearing a mask, right?
Yes, yes.
But it never felt to me like there was any meaningful question of what's behind the mask um,
That's right.
in a mystery sense.
You know who's doing it. You know the name of the person. And so I don't know. Yeah, you're right. To this island or the people of this island, is that a mystery we're solving? Who it is? Is it someone that they know? Is it
Yeah.
someone that, I mean, presumably it's somebody that has a history there in this place. But that's why I was so interested with the fact that they just cremated the guy and never looked because the mask is gone, the person's gone. You'll never know who it was. But maybe they did already. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know. And it seems to have worked. What seems to have worked? To have shot him with a shotgun, I guess.
Yeah, shot him with the second time from the front with a shotgun. That at least incapacitate him enough where they could strap him down and take him to the crematorium. That seemed to work.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. We'll see. We'll see if there's more there. And there could be. I do think it's really interesting what the show is doing in terms of playing with these horror premises, and then you have that kind of homage, and it often works at a horror level, and then
Yeah,
they find humor in it as well. But it does tie into that third thing in terms of there being some level of mystery here in terms of what's going on with the curse and all of that.
yeah, yeah.
You mentioned in your summary the stuff with Evan and Tom. There's more to talk about here.
So I
Thoughts about
mean,
this?
I guess I am, I guess, optimistically thinking. Optimistically is the wrong word. I think that I am choosing to believe that this is the truth that he's telling Evan at this point, right? You
Yeah.
know, I've seen people say, "Oh, well, she must still be alive. Something happened to her. She, whatever." Lots of speculation out there, but this seemed to be, at least from the way that Matthew Reese played this, the emotion that they both share, the detail he's able to give, the letters that exist. This seems to be the truth of what happens to her. I think we were surprised by the fact that there's a mental institution on this small island that barely has anything. There's, one gas station and two
Yeah.
restaurants, and so that's a little interesting thing to explore of who is there and why are they there. But I found this to be in this sort of just oddly, but it worked for me to sort of intersperse with this, slasher movie. We get this sort of connection between Tom and his son that at least Tom has been searching for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like that worked. And, you know, hmm, you just got me thinking about this because on a surface level, or as I watched through the episode, I was believing Tom. It does undermine the way I was believing him before, right? Like I'd had this thought that maybe it was repressed memories on his part, so he wasn't really lying. It does seem like he was pretty much lying. He was hiding this from his son, and so we have to buy that Evan was young enough that he doesn't really remember. And okay, we can buy that. I can buy that. I want to buy
Yeah.
that. But now, do we believe what we're told here from Tom? Because the motivation for the original lie in just telling Evan that his mother died in childbirth was to spare him from
Hmm.
knowing this other stuff, I guess, or almost reducing it to the point of irrelevance in a certain way that might make some sense, to say, well, okay, no, she didn't die in childbirth in the sense of bleeding out as she was giving birth, but she had some kind of stroke and was never the same and um, had erratic behavior, and then we had to institutionalize her.
Yeah.
And you don't need to know all of that. It'll be easier for you to just believe that your mom died in childbirth. Like maybe when you're an adult, I'll tell you the truth or something. I don't know if he ever told himself that. But now, okay, he says that she died in the home from a brain aneurysm. And that's the thing where there may be a little bit more of a question of whether we believe that in particular.
Yeah.
Because at one level, I want to believe Tom because I don't know. I guess I like the guy. I mean, he's a fictional character, but like I like him. He's a decent guy. I don't think he's a malicious liar. But could he be still doing some version of dissembling to try to protect his son if it were the case that actually she didn't die and she's still in the mental institution?
Right.
And the biggest thing that makes me think that that might be a live possibility is from a kind of detached point of view. Widow's Bay is the kind of show that now that they told us that there's a mental institution and it's a kind of show that plays with horror tropes, we're going to go there,
We are definitely going to go there.
right? At some point, we're going to go there because there's a treasure trove of horror tropes to play with regard to the insane asylum kind of trope, right?
Yeah.
So from that point of view, it does make me wonder if we shouldn't dismiss the possibility that maybe she is still alive in a way where she's so messed up that Tom almost thinks it's not lying to say she's dead.
Yeah. To your point from that you've been making, I, I almost think some of the lies have almost been, he's telling them they're almost for Tom's benefit, right? He doesn't want to connect the dots that whatever this curse is over the island could somehow be something that contributed to what happened to his wife and Evan's mother. He doesn't want to think about the fact that, well, because she couldn't leave the island or because there's a curse, that this is what happened to her. That's because of that. He's always been trying to
Yeah,
separate himself from that, particularly up until the last couple of months. So some of those lies have been for his own benefit. He just doesn't want to face that. To your point about going there, Our next episode is called Emergency Shelter. We know that a big storm is coming. What place might be a convening place big enough to hold everybody on the island? What if we all end up in this in this mental institution and we start to learn about a little bit about what's happening there?
Yeah, what a definite possibility there. Yeah, and it's interesting with Tom, we talked about this from the beginning. I think it works because at the one level from the beginning, he's kind of dismissive of the curse stuff, oh, this is superstitious or whatever. And of course, by this point, he's really come around on believing believing his own eyes and so on. But with the backstory with his wife, there is that little element where it's like, well, you already have the experience that you've been in denial about, or something like that. But
Yeah.
it would seem that whatever level of denial he's lived his life with regarding that, he's at least been superstitious enough to never let Evan leave the island,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's where, from the beginning, it does feel like at some level he believed that his son can't leave. And now he's bought Red Sox tickets.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think they're going to try to go, or because of what's occurring,
Not
Tom's
now.
going
No.
to
Not
renege
now.
on that? I think Evan will be understanding and on board. Do we get to the point of Evan believing in all of this
Yeah, I
stuff,
think that
including that he can't leave?
that's one more layer of things still to come is what Ev is able to learn and uncover about all this. I think they said that it's supposed to happen this weekend, so I just don't think there's no way they're going.
We'll see. Yeah, probably not. I'm just wondering, is Evan going to be mad about that? Is something going to convince him that no, there really is this curse? That means I can't leave the island, and so on. Because
Yeah.
that kid wants to get out of there. He doesn't like this
Oh yeah.
idea that he just has to
He's
stay on the island.
thrilled about the idea of visiting colleges. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened to the young woman that he was hanging out with. Did she just after she discovered that the secret was sad instead of funny? Did she just
Just bolted. Yeah.
leave? She was like, oh, I don't want to do that. I guess that makes sense. Talking about teenagers. But all right, anything else you want to hit on with this one before we wrap
No,
up here?
no, sir. I'm good.
All right, we're in the home stretch. All of a sudden, we've got 2 episodes left. So thanks always for listening. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. If so, please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you are on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. Be sure to check out TVObscast.com. You can find written work there on all sorts of TV shows. If you want to follow us on social media, search for TV Obsessive, and you should find us. And as for the podcast, we'll be back next week continuing to talk about Widow's Bay.
All right. Looking forward to that. We will see you then.